everyone. Pull up a chair and get comfy.
Oh, girl, have we got stories to tell you all. The Never Alone podcast is about to begin, and you don't want to miss a minute.
Welcome back. I'm Iris Fisher-Smith here at our Never Alone podcast and having another episode together. And we're just really enjoying this, Karen and I. This is great. And I'm here with my co-host, Karen Hearth Whitty. And we're ready for another session of talking and sharing stories and family stories and a little bit about our lives. So, Karen, what do you have for me tonight? Karen has something special.
What do I have for you in it? Well, I don't know. So I think I'm going to play host. I'm going to be the interviewer here. I wanted to talk to you about. I think for me, I've always been very impressed that you were able to make changes and moves across the country, and I know that through that journey, you've made lots of wonderful friends. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to start East Coast to West Coast. And I thought at first I'd talk about, up through junior high is when I was, and I was with you through high school too, but you're enough older, but you had really good friends in high school. And I thought it would be nice to talk about how those friendships that you had still actually are remaining with you right these days.
Yeah. You know what? It's hard to explain because I grew up with a mother and a father who were very social. As I've said before, my father came from more of an Italian background. My mother came from
Yeah.
Russian Yiddish. But when they came together, they just found a commonality in social and having fun and being around lots of people. And my mother was very good at maintaining her relationships. She had friends throughout her entire life, from her class, whatever, since she was 5.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of resonated with me. It got passed on to me. And so honestly, the friends, you're one of them. The friends that I had way back when, many of them I'm still in touch with. And somebody asked me, well, how do you do that? Well, I just do them one at a time. And we talk on the phone and as I'm able to and have time. And, it's just something I really enjoy. And it's kind of funny too, because there is a part of me that does like to have my alone time. I don't like to be around people all the time. The way that I restore myself and gain my energy back is through just being
Mm-hmm.
really quiet, having my prayer time.
Yep.
And, because I'll be with people for a while, then all of a sudden I kind of feel like, okay, now I need to be alone again, you know? And
Yep.
so, yeah, many of those friendships, like I said, including yourself, I still have many of them today. Not all of them, but most of them.
Um,
One of the things that's helped is Facebook, staying in touch that
yeah.
way. And I'm sure a lot of people can attest to that. It's just one of those things. I just really love my friends. I've always seen them as sisters and brothers. And isn't that like what, Christ would have done? He looked at people as his sisters and brothers, you know?
No, absolutely. What I think is really neat is that I believe that people are put into our lives for seasons.
Yeah.
And there are some friends that are truly been there for specific seasons in your life. So
Right.
I think what I do know about is aside from the seasonal friends, you've also had those friends that have gone childhood friends and continue to go. So one of them I know you talked about was your friend Gunilla, and she was
Vanilla.
from the Gunilla. I'm so sorry, Gunilla. She's from the New Hampshire area, and what I really loved and was really neat, which actually was kind of touched my heart, was for those of you who don't know, I have 3 children. My oldest was born with a disability. She was born with spina bifida, and Iris was working at the Joni and Friends camp, and we had hoped to try to have her go at one point. I think I was a little too nervous to send her, but it was really, really neat because it gave us kind of in a weird way another thing in common to talk about. So can you tell me a little bit about your friend and your time with Joni and Friends?
Well, actually, it's Johnny. She pronounces it Johnny.
Johnny,
Yeah,
Johnny. I always said Joni. Isn't that funny? We grew up saying Joni. Yeah, okay, funny.
it's okay. A lot of people do that because she's a woman, but it's Johnny Erickson Tada. It was Johnny Erickson,
Yep.
and she married Ken Tada, so she became Johnny Erickson
Mm-hmm.
Tada. And she started her ministry, just for people that don't know who she is. She actually had a diving accident way back in
Yeah.
1968, I think it was, when she was 16, I believe. I may be a little
Yep.
unclear on the exact details, but it's around the same time. And she became a
Yep.
quadriplegic right out of the gate. And she has spent
Yep.
years in that wheelchair. So the Lord, I believe that the Lord uses everything. And of course, in her situation,
Mm.
she allowed him to use her to establish
Yep.
this Johnny Erickson Tata ministry, which has become worldwide. And one of the things that she did is way back, and I think it was 1995 or so, she started this thing called Ministry Associates. And at that time, I was using a wheelchair more because I had a couple of mini strokes that were forcing me to be down. My whole left side wasn't functioning correctly. I couldn't see out of my right eye, on and on and on. I'm very, very blessed to have recovered from a lot of that. I went from a wheelchair to a leg brace. I finally gave up the leg brace, and thank God. But anyhow, she started that ministry associate thing, and I became one of her ministry associates. And while I was a ministry associate of hers, which was for about 9 years, I had a supervisor and I worked under him and he gave me direction. And during that time, I was writing a lot of what they called back then newsletters that were being distributed
Yep.
to churches around the country. And they were designed to encourage people, in their walk with the Lord. And so at that time, my friend Tammy Maceberg from Colorado came alongside of me, and that was when I lived in Colorado at the time. As you said before, I've traveled a lot, so I'm trying to keep it
Yep.
chronologically, intact here,
Yeah.
which is hard. But anyway, so I became her ministry associate, and to make a long story short, I started, attending her summer retreats. They call them family retreats. And at first, I attended the one first in Pennsylvania. Then they established one, little by little, they were establishing all these retreats around the country. So then they established one in New Hampshire. And at the time, I was living in New Hampshire. So it was convenient to attend the one in New Hampshire. And I needed an
Yeah.
assistant. My husband couldn't be there all the time because of work. So that's when my friend Gunilla Cunningham is her name. And she actually wrote the foreword in my book, Never Alone. And she became
Okay.
a constant in my life for a number of years during the course
Nice.
of my recovery. And I mean, she stuck closer to me than a sister. She really did. And she was just a beautiful example
Mm.
of someone who had a servant's heart. She attended the
Nice.
retreat with me, and she was a great assistant, you know. And we're still in touch because we were that close. We talk periodically together. She's come out here to visit me in Washington State. Gunilla is someone who comes from Sweden. She came over here when she was 5. And she still lives in New Hampshire, and I'm in Washington State, and we miss each other terribly. And I'm just one of those people, when I connect with somebody, it's very hard for me to let them go. But like you said, there are seasons. And so I'm
Yep.
at 66 years old, I'm learning to let go of some of those relationships that were seasonal. So
Yep.
does that answer the
But I
Ganella?
think it's really, it does. Yeah, the Ganella thing, it does. I think the thing that's interesting is mm, the season part can be that it's not so much that we're still like we're going through people. It's just there's particular seasons that stand out in your mind. You have these profound relationships, and I can still be friends with lots of people, but we had these moments in time that were really crucial to my sense of worth, sense
Yeah.
of who I was as a woman, who I was as a mother, as a wife. And I just always felt like God's always put the people there. So I want to digress a little bit. So can you, for those who don't know, could you tell everyone how often, and I'm leading into something with this here, how often you had to use the wheelchair and do you still have to use it off and on?
Back then, when I had the strokes, I had to use it like all the time. I didn't know even where this was
Yeah.
going to go. And in the very beginning, they didn't know what was wrong. They actually thought I had MS for a while because when they did the
Mm,
MRIs, the brain MRIs, these spots were showing up and it looked like, I mean, like
yeah.
plaques. And it could look like MS, it could look like strokes. And eventually we figured
Yeah.
out that I was having strokes, but it was being treated probably incorrectly for a little while until they figured it out. But it was very complex because I had the burst appendix when I was young. I had celiac disease.
Yeah.
It wasn't that easy to diagnose, as many things aren't.
Right.
So I used the
Yeah.
wheelchair probably for a good 7 to 10 years pretty much full time. I was
Mm-hmm.
that debilitated. If you remember when I
Yeah.
visited you on Cape Cod,
That's
Massachusetts,
where I was going. That's
when
where I was
we,
going.
yeah. And so what happened was my son convinced me to come out to Washington State after my mother passed about 11 years ago. And he said, Mom, I think you're going to do so much better out here medically. And he was right.
Oh,
I've never done this well
hmm.
in my entire life. They totally put me on a path of rehabilitation where I'm now walking. I don't have a
That's
leg brace.
wonderful.
I can now
Yep.
talk again. I had trouble putting
Mm-hmm.
sentences together. My mouth was drooped
Yeah.
like, and I still think it's, well, whatever.
Yeah.
But now
I don't see it. Yeah.
my eyesight has
Yeah.
improved. There was a time where I felt like I was going blind, and
Do you
I
think it's the
developed.
environment?
I'm
Do
sorry.
you feel like it's somewhat environmental out there, Iris? Do you feel like it's a little bit of the environment, or is it more the treatments?
It's a combination because the environment out here is much
Okay.
healthier for me too. Because it doesn't get terribly cold. Where we live, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
snow, and it doesn't get terribly hot. It does rain a lot, but it's interesting because we don't have
Yeah.
high humidity like you do in the
Yeah.
Northeast. So like when I
Mm-hmm.
lived in the Northeast, I had trouble with the humidity. When I went to Florida, I had trouble with the humidity. When I went to Colorado, I
Yeah.
had trouble with the altitude. Here, my
Oh.
son, right, he came out here and he said, and the other thing is, Mom, I want to be able to, be there to help you. And in the course of the 12 years that I've been here, he met a nice girl, which he had met right after I got here. And he's now married
Mm-hmm.
to her. That's Samantha. And they now have two children, and we've just established ourselves out here, and between the environment and the medical help and just establishing new family roots, because a lot of people
Yeah.
had,
Beautiful.
when my parents passed, my sister had passed, it was heartbreaking and it was hard to let go of. But I'll tell you, my son and daughter-in-law have been very instrumental, and people that I go to church with, the friends I've made here, have
Yeah.
been instrumental in adapting, you know so
Yeah. So that's really cool. So tell me how, when you were in that 10-year, 7-year with the wheelchair, what state were you in?
At that time, I was in New
Or
Hampshire.
states?
Yeah, New Hampshire,
Okay. Yeah.
Vermont, and
All
New.
right.
It was Vermont
Yeah.
and New Hampshire. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And so then you moved your way out. Where would you say you started going west? Where was the first state to the west that you went to?
We went to Massachusetts. We went to Florida. We went to
Florida?
Colorado.
So go west.
Yeah, I was
Colorado.
drawing a
So
little
tell me
map.
about a little bit about that time there.
When I was in Colorado, I was trying to establish the climate, a better climate for me. What I didn't realize is
Yeah.
the altitude bothered me. Also, what really bothered me was it was a brand new place. It was very transient. And our son didn't do so well
Mm.
because we were so far away from family. And at that point, I think I lived there maybe 2 or 3 years, and my mother convinced us to come back because she really missed
Wow.
our son. She missed us,
Yeah.
you know.
Oops. I'm gonna pause for 2 seconds. Hang on. My earbud. Si'll do a good job chopping this out. There we go. So that's interesting. So you came back to Massachusetts. So tell me what year you moved out to Washington State. I don't have the year in my brain.
I have to look in my book.
Yeah, ballpark me. How old was Paul? Or were you still in Florida when he graduated? I
Oh yeah, when he graduated high school when we were still up in Vermont and New Hampshire.
yeah.
And
Okay.
then
All
at that
right.
point, then he went to and we moved to Florida for a while because we
Yep.
had moved to Colorado, but then we moved back. So we were still in Vermont and New Hampshire when he graduated, you know. But
Okay. Nice.
he eventually went to Embry-Riddle, Aeronautical University in Florida. So he went back to Florida, for a while. Then he worked
Okay.
in Texas. I mean, we really have been traveling quite a bit,
Yeah.
over.
Well, it's nice you've had the luxury to do that, to be
Yeah,
able to pick up and go. And yeah, I don't know about luxury, but the freedom
I would say more the
is a
freedom
really good way
because
to say it.
it
Yeah.
certainly wasn't easy. We didn't always have the
Nope.
money, but somehow it
Right.
worked
Yeah.
out, you know.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's a really
Very
neat. Yeah.
carefully.
Nice. So would you say, so we get you out to Washington State. You think you've been there how long now?
About 12 years now.
Yeah, neat.
If I
So you
look
consider
back in
your
my,
that's I mean,
I'm just looking at my book for a second. There is a chapter where I talk about saying goodbye to my best friend, which is my mother. Okay.
yeah.
And like I've
Oh,
said before, there's so much in my book. It's like a history book because I talk about world
yeah.
history, and my own family's history. All right,
Yeah.
here.
Well, I think it would be nice actually if we kind of segued and circled into that. I think both of us have been blessed with moms that we have really good friendships with.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's an amazing thing. I know my sister and my mom are still the three of us. We're very, very fortunate to have strong mothers, strong relationships. And and a mother-daughter bond is quite something.
Oh yes. I even bonded with
Mother-child bond. Yeah. You've been bonded with what?
I even bonded with your mother. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
looking
No,
for the
I know.
date.
Just having strong women. Yep.
I'm looking at the date that I came out here. Hold on.
Yeah.
I think it was. All right. Let's back up 12. Let's say 10 years. Okay. We were
Okay. Yep.
2025. What year would that have been 10 years ago? 2005? No,
2015.
2015. We came out around 2014 or 15. I'm trying
Okay.
to figure out when my mother passed
Interesting.
away.
I want to put her around 2000.
Yeah, because
Oh,
you came to the funeral, you and your mom. Hmm.
yep. 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 A little bit of a blur, but yeah.
Yeah, because my father died in 2008. I think my mother passed away in 2012. I think that's
That's
what
what
it
I
was.
was going to say. On there. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Because my aunt Ruthie died in 2011. That was her
Okay.
sister. Okay. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, my mother died after her. And I just kept losing people, as we get older. This is the hardest
Yeah.
part in life, is when you've bonded with
Yeah.
all these people. That's the disadvantage of knowing that many people and bonding that way, is letting them go. And
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
that's why I entitled the chapter with my mother. It was entitled "Saying Goodbye to My Best Friend," because she really was my best friend. She was a
Yeah.
wonderful mother.
Yeah.
Was she perfect? No, but she was
No.
always there, and there was never any doubt in our
Yeah.
mind that she loved us. You know.
Nope. I totally could see it, and that's really, really neat.
Please excuse this brief interruption for a shameless commercial. Remember, you can get your own copy of Iris's book, Never Alone, at irisfsmith.com.
So we'll talk about, I want to know when you got to Washington and how you got yourself sort of, I mean, you didn't know anybody out there, right? You got out there and you started from scratch.
Actually, the church what I was attending in New Hampshire put me in touch with a
Hmm.
pastor and his wife out here.
Oh,
And
wow.
then they put me in touch with a lady who literally prayed me all the way out here because I had such health issues.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I knew people before I came because of that. Plus, my son was here. And I got to
Yeah.
tell you, right out of the gate, I found a church right away when I got here. And
Yeah.
right away, I had two women come up to me, and they're in the book, and I'm still friends with them now. One
Yeah.
is Wendy Wilson, and the other one was Linda Bowman, and they both came up to me at church. They knew I was new, and they said, "Hi, I'm Wendy. I'm Linda." And they actually
Yeah.
welcomed me to the point where they were coming over and bringing food, and just coming
Oh,
along
yeah.
and helping us to acclimate and get acquainted with everything.
I know.
And then it just spread from there. Then you just there's this thing about, if you find the right church and the right congregation, what happens is you find a nice bunch of people and they just become like family, right?
Yeah, a healthy church knows how to be and reach out. And I was exactly what I was thinking. I think it was amazing, just those little things that matter when people when you're sick or when you have something, happen in your family, they're there. And it could be the same darn casserole that shows up on a regular basis, but you're just so happy, and it really is an amazing way to feel like a part of a community. So I think that's really what I was figuring, is that you got yourself plunked right into a place that had community.
Yeah, and I was really, really blessed that way because, it's hit and miss when you try churches, Some of them
Oh,
aren't
totally.
so
Yeah.
healthy, like you said. My son and daughter-in-law go to a Lutheran church, and that's a great church.
Oh,
They go
wow.
lots of people, they're really friendly, they like to have a good time, lots of fun. And that's what I like about the churches that I attend out here is the fact that people are a little more upbeat, they're nice. My pastor this past Sunday at the chapel here in the community I live in, he said, we're really lucky in this chapel because people are nice. You
Mm,
don't go to a church
yeah.
always where people are nice. And I've experienced those people, you know?
Well,
There was a
church is
time,
meant for everybody. It's meant for everyone. And
yeah,
unfortunately, happy, unhappy, miserable, in a good place. Yeah, that's
yeah.
yeah.
When
That's
I
my
was
favorite thing, is the church is what shoots its wounded.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. When I first
Yeah,
went to
that's one of my
church,
favorite statements.
yeah, there you go. I really struggled when I first went out on my own when I was about 18 and went out to Greenfield, Massachusetts. I attended a church and was expecting people to be nice and welcoming. If I didn't know God the way I did, I don't think I would have remained a Christian because they were that mean and
Yeah.
judgmental. It was pretty
Wow.
bad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I think that we're being told to move out.
Well, I
It's
think
one of those
those churches
promptings. Time to go. Yeah.
I think people get confused with those churches because churches that are like that, they call it a church, but to tell you the truth, it's been my experience that they're more cult-like. They're like a cult, where anybody that
Uh-huh.
tries to tell you how to live and dictate to you, that's a red flag. You don't want to go to a place
Yep.
like that,
Do's and don'ts.
where it's
Hmm.
everything's condemnation and fear, and it's the end times. We're not supposed to live that way. That's not what Christ
Nope.
intended. What's your
Yeah.
take
No,
on that?
that's neat. I totally agree. I think it's supposed to be unconditional love, and I think it's supposed to be about the greatest commandment, which is love thy neighbor as thyself. Jesus said, "Love thy neighbor," and it wasn't. Jesus didn't say, "Stick your finger in their face and you're doing this, this, and this." It's about, it could be some things in people's lives that you just need to come alongside them. It's people are wounded enough, and I think
Yeah,
when you get into a church and you realize that it's healthy, it's usually pretty on track with very clear and logical and practical practices that were set out from the Old Testament to the New Testament. And you
right,
can give
right.
yourself, and it doesn't matter what the denomination is. It's just about, it's, it's strictly faith based. And yeah, there's some pretty clear guidelines that are common in healthy churches, and there's some red flags that you are absolutely right. So
Yeah, and
yeah, but that's interesting because I'm sure you experienced it a bunch.
well, here's the thing. If I didn't learn anything else from those churches, okay, and there was a few of them where I was like, you've got to be
Yeah.
kidding me. Do you read the same Bible I do? If I didn't learn anything else, Karen, I learned what not to do,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
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 That's what
Yeah.
made me
Well, I
get
think
involved.
sometimes you're there for that reason too.
Yeah. And that's the reason I got involved with Johnny and Friends. I almost said Joni.
Hmm.
That's
Haha.
because she had such a compassionate ministry, which she would have because it was all about people with disabilities. Of course, that would be the case, and I
Mm.
just that helped me to heal from some of those wounds I experienced going to some of these churches.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a disabled person, and I had people judging me and saying, "Wow, you must have done a lot of sin to be like this." I'm like, "Yeah, right. I haven't had the time. I haven't had the energy."
Yeah. No, no. I actually was asked if I had done something wrong to have my daughter, who was born with spina bifida. What did you do? She said to me. I said, "Excuse me." It was just
No kidding.
profoundly, yeah, yeah. That, and it's funny, that was a church that was quite loving, but it was probably a little fundamental. And I think sometimes people have a hard time thinking outside the lines. I luckily knew enough to know that they weren't a healthy person.
Well,
So,
no kidding. They're
you
not
know,
if they're doing that. No.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know I'd been raised to know enough and to know that I'm loved unconditionally, and that's not how we treat other people.
Well, here's the thing. If you have not love, you have nothing. You nothing.
Yeah,
Because we're not to
nothing.
judge. We're not to do that. Everybody has a journey. Everybody has a walk. And the Bible says that we're
Hmm.
in this world and we're subject to its problems. We're all going to have something, you know.
Right,
And
exactly.
for
Yeah.
people who think it's going to be, you can pray everything away. That's not realistic. What we pray
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
is we
Yep.
pray for grace to get through those times. You know,
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
the world is the
Amen.
world. The world is the world, and
Hmm.
it comes at us. And what do we do? Well, that's what made me be a believer. Is when I had those times where the world was coming at me and I didn't have control. I had a place to go. And
Yep.
got
Yep.
that
Yeah.
reassurance, that's security that I needed, and wisdom to know how to get through it. You
Yep.
know,
Yeah. And yeah, to discern. Discernment's a big one.
yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. We probably go off into a whole spat of that, but I mean, there are great healthy churches too, and never, even in the healthy ones, are not perfect. I think you just have to just really become, yeah, kind of come alongside people when there's issues, and then identify when you know something's not healthy and sort of step aside.
Well, it's like I've told a friend of mine once. She said, "I hope I don't disappoint you as a friend." And I said, "You know what? I don't expect perfect. That's not it." I said, "The
Hmm.
only thing I ever expect
Yeah.
from people is to be loyal and kind. That's it. You
Yeah.
know, as long as you're not mean,
Yeah.
I'm good."
Yeah, I don't do well with mean people either. Actually, I stay away from them like with a 10-foot pole, and I can call them out immediately. And actually, it's really too bad because I know that if you're that mean, that typically there's something not really great inside your heart and probably have some major hurts. But that's why we have therapists. So
True.
not me, not me. No, no. Yeah, no, I will not go to lunch with you. So I'm only kidding. Yeah. Yeah, totally yeah, totally not capable of being the one that they need at that moment, probably. So
Yeah.
it's too bad though that you experienced that. I think that's hard. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people have, and even Johnny Erickson Tada would
Yeah.
tell you there were times when people wanted her to be healed, and she was like, "No kidding, you don't think I want to be healed?" you know?
Oh, tell me. I know, right? Isn't that wild? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I know. Isn't it wild?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Like who
fascinating.
wants
I
to
read
be?
her book when I was Yeah, I read her book when we were still on Richards Avenue. I can tell you, I read her book. I remember exactly where I was when I read it about the whole thing with her and the swimming pool and everything. And yeah, that was probably one of the first Christian books by a Christian writer that I had ever read. So it's just really interesting as you're talking about it, that was my first experience
I think she was
getting to
diving
know who
into a
she was.
lake. She was diving off of a dock
I
into a
thought it
lake.
was a pool. Oh, she wasn't in, oh, all right. I thought it was a pool. There might have been somebody else, but
Yeah, and remember that they also
yeah,
made a movie of her experience. Do you remember the movie? Because I went with the youth group from our church back then
I don't
to
remember.
see the
I don't.
movie.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, in the movie theater. Yeah.
I d- yeah, I don't recall. Isn't that funny? Yeah. Hmm.
I'm pretty sure you were there, you know?
I'm sure I was too. It's like, oh my gosh, what I don't remember. Great.
Well, here's the thing.
Oh,
You're going to remember stuff I don't remember, and it's vice versa. It's just the way it is. Your brain can only hold so much.
well, yeah. I know. I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you. If you say so, okay, I was there. I don't know.
I'm
Oh,
making it up.
funny, funny, funny. Yeah, not. I know. I'm sure you're not. I'm going, oh my gosh, where was I? I was probably paying attention to some cute boy. I don't know. Really wasn't paying
Well,
attention to the movie.
it
Mm.
wasn't the cute boys yet. You were younger, and I remember you jumping around in the seats a lot. You weren't. That's probably why you don't remember, because you were doing other things. You know,
If
you
I
and
was young, yeah, maybe that was that.
yeah, you and other kids were jumping around, and I was looking around, and I didn't catch the whole movie because I was distracted with all the kids playing.
Oh, funny. Oh, that makes sense. Like going with my granddaughters now. Okay, I get it. I get it. That makes total sense. Too funny.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say, so this is really neat because I know that in the future you're going to want to bring on some friends that you have had great friendships with, some women that have you've mentored women and you've been mentored. So it's really neat to be able to have these conversations about our friends. And I'm very, very blessed to have super strong friends, true, who have come through and been by my side, thick and thin,
Yeah.
all the way back from when I was 5 years old and to meeting those who have been my lifelong adult friends. And they, very thankful for them.
Do you remember who your very first friend was when you were young? Was I one of your first friends, or did I come
You
along after?
were, you, no, you would have been one of my first friends. You and there was a gal that lived up the street. Am I allowed to say her name? I think it would be fine. Her name was Dana Harris. So I would walk up. Did you play with the Harrises at all? You go up the road and because they had kids that ran all ages.
I somewhat played with them, but my mother had me going in a different direction. They were way up the street, so I
You
went as
what the
far as
hell? Yeah, yeah,
until I
yeah,
started
yeah.
babysitting. And then it's funny because we
Mm-hmm.
had other neighbors called Karis, and you had the Harris and the Karis, but I
And the
babysat
kids,
Harrises.
yeah,
And I want to tell you something funny
yeah,
about Harrises and how I babysat. I have to tell you this story, okay? So I
yeah.
would babysit on a Saturday night, and back then, this is the 70s, so houses were really groovy. So this house had all windows.
I
The whole,
know.
do you remember
Mm-hmm.
that?
The bubbles, the bubble
Yeah,
windows that went around the
yeah.
bottom. Yeah, yeah,
It was like the modern house. Anyway, so here I am
yeah.
babysitting Saturday night. It's in the woods. I was so scared. And they had a Great Dane, for a dog,
Oh,
and
honey.
the dog
Yeah,
was
yeah.
with me, and I was thinking, okay, this is good. At least I got the dog, right? Until, I mean, here
Yeah.
it was Saturday night, and the dog started getting a little frisky with me, and I was like, oh no, no, don't start.
Not a small dog to get to push
Yeah,
away. I love it.
and I wasn't thinking back then. And so this
Oh
dog
my
would be
gosh.
like, he'd be like, hey, it's Saturday night,
Uh, dogs
I
slamming, slobbering.
mean, so between the bubble windows in the woods in the dark, being scared, and the dog
Yeah,
wanted to get frisky, I was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this.
yeah.
So I didn't babysit for them. It was too much.
I know. Do you remember when they started building that house? I was so sad because we had
Yeah,
like this. There was, I don't, I wonder if it was a house that must have burnt down back there because we used to go
yeah,
and catch frogs, and that's where the
right, right.
tadpoles were, and they built right over that. Yeah,
I know they ruined our
yeah, funny.
tadpole fun. Yeah,
They did. We had a wicked cool. It was wicked cool we went to. The
that's
Duchess
right.
came flying out. Jeez, wicked cool. Yeah, I
Well, we do
know. I
have time.
wouldn't be. I don't.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I say I wouldn't catch a frog now. I mean, I'd look at it, but I don't want to catch it. Yeah.
I don't see
Mm.
many frogs in Washington State, although I've heard that they're here. Although my son said to me,
Oh,
"Mom, listen to my backyard." And I was like, "Oh, you're right. There's still frogs. I could hear them, eat, 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 eat,
so do you have tree frogs? The tree ones that stick on the
Yeah.
trees. Yeah. Funny.
Um, so
Yeah.
we have time for one more question, and then we're going to have to leave for today. But this has definitely
Yeah.
been fun.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I just kind of wanted. It's not really a question. I think just kind of thought it would be nice to share that we both have been keenly aware that God's put particular people in our lives as we've gone along, and then maintain the ones that, some French friends are family. We're family in so many
Yeah.
ways, and but I think the fact that you've been able to document and write about your friendships and to really keep a neat history about it is it's encouraging and inspiring, and it inspires me to try to write down and make notes about my journey over the last, well, especially since I was like, well, I got married young, so at 20, 20 to now, so the last 40 plus years.
Well, you made
So
a
I
comment to
think
me
that's
once.
really neat.
Yeah, you made a comment to me that I thought was very interesting. You said to me, and this is when we were young, and then you said it again
Mm,
when I was in my 30s, I think. You said, you're like a sponge soaking everything up. And you were right. I was so present because I was a good listener that I literally
yeah.
soaked up so much stuff. That's how I was able to write the
Hmm.
book. That and also interviewing people helped too, you know?
Yeah, you said that. I think that's neat. I think the fact that you were able to do that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I started asking my dad questions. It's so funny. The last visit we had, I started asking all sorts of questions. My mom's next, but it's interesting because they weren't so they didn't share a lot of that. But if I ask, I find that they're really in a place that they love the idea of telling us about it. So I think
My
anyone hearing this and you've got parents, ask your parents, ask them about their
now
childhood,
they're
ask
still
them about
alive. Yep.
their family. Yeah.
Mhm. while they're still alive. My aunt Elaine is still around, and I love her dearly. And she's
Me,
another one I'm going to have to eventually let go of. She's 84 years old, and she's in a
yeah.
rehab center in Boston, and I miss her dearly. She's in the book too. Anyway, I've
Mm,
been asking her
mm,
questions, and we talk about old times, and I'm hearing things still that I didn't know. You
yeah.
know, there's
Don't you
just a
love it? Yeah, it's
people
nice.
have a lifetime of stories to share. You know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
here's the thing: we can learn from those stories. We learn from history. We learn from other
Hmm.
people. I've said it before, and we're going to be talking about this in the next episode. We're going to be having my friend Rachel come on and talk about the sadness of the computers and how it's, I mean, computers have their place. They've done a lot of good, but the thing that it's done is it's caused this next generation to, instead of talking to a person and asking them questions, now they're asking Google and GPT chat,
Hmm.
whatever the heck that is. And this
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
you're asking questions like that, and the computer does not know you. It didn't grow up with you. It doesn't know how you feel. So you're going to get direct answers to questions, but there's no feeling behind it or emotion or
yeah,
memories. You know what I'm saying? The best thing to
yeah.
do, and we'll
Nope.
talk about this next week, is to be able to talk to people, your family, your friends, about long ago. What did we learn from that? What happened? History is very exciting. And that's why I wrote the book that I
Yeah.
did, So anyway, we're going to sign off for now. And Karen,
Yep.
I want to thank you so much for, visiting with us again and just being there all the time. See, this is my friend who, is always there, and we're never alone.
Never alone. It's always going along for the ride. That's what I
Yeah.
told you. Here I
No,
am.
sticking closer to
So,
me than a sister. So thank you
oh,
for
yeah,
being with us. Thank you for watching. And we look forward to our next episode. Thanks again, and good night for now.
great. Good night. Have a great week.
Wow, that was awesome, wasn't it?
I know those stories were really something.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time when we share more stories from Iris's book, Never Alone.
Order your copy of Never Alone at irisfsmith.com today.